What's up, guys? This is Dan from CryptoMood, and I just wanted to take you guys through a quick tutorial of our mobile app. We've had a lot of questions about it ever since we updated it and added a whole bunch of new features. So I figured I'd just go, step by step kind of through what everything is and kind of how to make sense of what's going on. So starting at the very top here, you have a whole bunch of cryptocurrencies that I'm watching. One thing worth noting is that the amount of cryptocurrencies you can watch is currently limited to Bitcoin if you're using the free version. I am using the premium version, which is why I have access to all these coins. And I'll be showing you how to change this list that you see up here because we track not just these, but over 3,000 cryptocurrencies. Anyway, so let's start here by going to Bitcoin because it'll be a little bit easier to understand. So immediately you can see that we have price, of course, that makes sense. And on this graph, price is the gray indicator. And you'll be able to see that once we go over to social sentiment. So you can see the gray one stayed the same. So that one's price. And in this case, the orange or yellow and is new sentiment, and the blue is social sentiment. So you might be wondering, okay, well, what's the importance of new sentiment and social sentiment? So think about this for a second. Whenever there's news, let's say there's some big news about Bitcoin. Let's say Warren Buffett buys Bitcoin. What is that going to do to news sentiment? News sentiment is going to go up, right? Because that's like a positive story. All the news, basically all these news organizations are going to start reporting on it. And theoretically, what impact is that going to have on the price? Well, a spike in news sentiment is going to mean, in theory, a spike in social sentiment, also a spike in social sentiment, but a spike in price, right? And if we go over to social sentiment, then it's the same idea. And the reason why we can't say that our app necessarily predicts price or anything like that is because there's so much interaction, right? News sentiment also kind of drives social sentiment. Social sentiment can drive news sentiment, because, for example, something in social sentiment could be maybe Vitalik Buterin tweets something, and then that ends up in the news, and then the news feeds back into social. You know what I mean? So it can kind of go back and forth and back and forth. Anyway, the main idea to take away is that in some cases, and we've had traders test this, and that's what they found, is that you can use news sentiment and social sentiment to basically optimize your trades, because you can get a sense of, use news sentiment when we see a piece of news spike, or when you see news sentiment spike because there's some really big news coming in, then we're going to expect that the price of Bitcoin is going to rise along with that. And then, of course, when we see social sentiment, and then and for other people, they say, maybe I don't want to trade off of the news. I want to trade off of what's going on. And there's been some speculation by some traders who are using our app that for some coins, the news might be more important. But for other coins, it could be social sentiment that's more important for trading. And that's something that we're still testing. Our users are testing it. Professional traders are testing it. I'm personally testing it here at CryptoMood. And anyway, you can see the different time frames here. So I can go, to 1 hour. I can go to 1 minute, I believe this is what it is. And you can see it's a little weird, right? Because when you get this close, you're like, well, what the heck? What's this weird looking graph? And the thing is that within a certain amount of time, it makes it really, really hard to generate a sentiment curve if there's not enough data, right? So, if you don't have enough data points, then you can't draw a line. And that's kind of what happens, and maybe we can go through and show you a better example. And here we can have 1 day, and of course, I believe each of these dots is 3 days or something like that, or 1 day. But I mean, you kind of get the idea. Anyway, so let's do another example here. So let's say I go over to CRO. See, you're going to see nothing in news sentiment. We go to the 12-hour, we can see a little bit more. We go to the day, see if it loads up here a little bit. I should give you guys a warning. I am using an older iPhone to record this. But in any case, yeah, you can see that there isn't anything for news, but the social sentiment is just fine. And the reason is that, there's no one that's really mentioning anything in the news about the Crypto.com coin. And I'm assuming that this spike is when they announced that they would be removing the MCO. For those of you who are following along with this, basically they just switched over to just using CRO, but that's something else. We'll leave that alone for now. Anyway, so again, news sentiment, social sentiment, you can use these to optimize your trading. You can see they kind of mirror price a little bit, but occasionally you'll see a spike before you see a price bull run, basically. Anyway, so going down here, we have whale transactions, powered by Whale Trace, which is another app that's being developed by Turing Technology, which is the company behind CryptoMood, and they're also developing another app called Whale Trace. So the green bars is basically cryptocurrency that's going from exchanges to wallets. So that's like a good thing. So the more green bars there are, then basically the more bullish it would be for that asset. If you see the red bars, which is basically people moving their funds from their wallets to the exchange, that means they're probably, not always, but it means that they're probably going to sell. And what could happen with that is when you basically go to one of these coins and if you see it's all red, then that means everyone is sending their stuff to the exchange and everyone is selling, which is probably not a good thing if you're trading. Anyway, and here you can see these are some of the largest transactions that have taken place recently. So we had someone transfer almost 27 million US of Bitcoin, and that went to Bitfinex. So it looks like people are moving their funds over, or at least some people are moving their funds over to the exchange to sell. And now we get to kind of like the highlight, at least for me, for this app. And this is kind of like the aggregation feature. So of course, CryptoMood, we analyze over 50,000 news and social media sources to generate these indicators, these social sentiment, news sentiment indicators. And we actually provide a sort of, well, in this case, it's not a live feed. And the main feed you see on the homepage here is like the most important like news stories. So these are like the most important tweets. Occasionally, you'll see that maybe there'll be a tweet and you'll see really negative sentiment attached to it or maybe news, but then you'll read it and you're like, wait a minute, this is actually kind of positive. It's because we're still tweaking out the AI because this is all done by AI. So it's not always 100% accurate, but it's been getting a lot better and it's good enough that it's giving traders an advantage in trading. So that's kind of what we were going after. And of course, we're just working hard to make sure that's as clean as possible. But if you ever see something, a little bit off, then if anything, just let us know and we'll take a closer look at it if it's consistently happening at a certain news source. But I mean, it happens quite rarely, maybe once every couple of days with a news article. Anyway, so here we have basically all the news, including social media stuff, with kind of like the most bullish or bearish, and of course the green, the positive, that's positive sentiment. So this is a lot of it here is from Twitter. And if we go down, here we can see from tweeting from CoinDesk. And now you can see a little bit of a news story from FinTech Zoom and Investing.com. And then you have all these tags, and you can kind of filter by tags if you want. And if you have a live version of and this can be really overwhelming, but if you have the live version of this app, basically every single tweet that mentions Bitcoin, BTC, anything related to Bitcoin, you're going to see it in real time coming in right here. And that can be really useful to a lot of traders, but some of you might say, "Oh my God, like there's way too much, there's way too many tweets coming in. I want to be more focused on news or focus on other things." So what you can do here, and I just clicked on the bottom, I clicked on the filter there, and what I can do is I can unclick Twitter, apply the filter, and now I'm getting a lot of Reddit, and you can see I'm even getting some YouTube. And you're able to click on these, of course, and check them out. And it makes it really awesome because you get kind of like this top-down look at what the market is doing. And you don't have to, you don't have to have a YouTube tab open. You don't have to have a Cointelegraph open and all these things. You can just look at it all through the app. And you can see, not only that, but you can see the effect that's likely to have, or I guess on the market based on the sentiment, right? So that's kind of the main selling point of our app. And you can see a lot of really, really cool stuff here. And I'll put Twitter back because I actually like having the Twitter feed, at least for me personally. Okay, so moving on. So now we're here at alarms. This is something that's been confusing for a few people. So normally, I believe when you open up if you don't have any alarms set, then you'll probably see this screen first. I actually can't remember. But in any case, if you're not seeing your alarms, then you have to click on the alarm bell up on the top right here. And this is where you can activate or deactivate the custom alarms that you've set. But if we go back here and let's go and add an alarm, so you can do a whole bunch of different things. So let's just to keep things simple, we're going to go and say, okay, news sentiment. If news sentiment is in a downtrend over a 4-hour period, we're going to save this alarm. And sometimes people are like, okay, like where's the alarm? And that's, you go over here and here's the alarm. And it's the one that I just set is this one over here. And I'm just going to turn all of them off. And I believe that you can delete them just by clicking and holding, and you can just delete them as you go if you don't want them. And that's basically it for alarms. We've had a lot of questions about those alarms, and of course those are push notifications. You'll get those on your phone. You'll see those as soon as they happen. And over here, this is kind of like, the settings section, nothing too crazy here. But this is actually, I guess, the most important part of the settings section is, of course, you can toggle if you want notifications from alarms and important news and announcements from us. But the other thing, too, is if you go to your watch list, this is where you can manually select. You see, here's where we have the huge list that I can just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And it will basically catch, like I said, for most of these, you should be able to see social sentiment with no issue. But for some of these, you might not see any news sentiment indicators. And like I said, that's because there's just no news coming out for these coins. So if you I don't know, let's say you're a huge fan of, let's say you're a huge fan of Bird Chain. Let's add it over here. And then let's go back home. And let's go all the way to the end here to Bird. So here we'll see news sentiment. We got nothing. We got nothing on Bird Chain, but if we go over to social sentiment, we have a little bit more, especially when we go to a larger time frame here. But it looks like there isn't even that much buzz around Bird. So unfortunately for some of these cryptocurrencies, you're not going to see too much data. But for most of them, especially the larger plays, you're going to see a lot of stuff. And of course, the last thing that I'll mention just quickly, for those of you interested in API stuff, we have this whole documentation here. I'm not going to go through it, mainly because I don't understand what's going on, but you can have all the instructions basically to connect to API and use our API and all these things. And if you just swipe left, then you'll be back at the app. So don't worry. And initially when I opened that up, I was like, how do I get back? But you just swipe left. It's pretty straightforward. Or you just click done. Anyway, so yeah. That's basically our app, and our terminal has more or less the same features, but it's a lot more powerful. And in my opinion, I much prefer the terminal actually. But the mobile app can be really, really useful, especially if you're on the go and you want to set some alerts. And yeah, that's the CryptoMood app. And please let us know what you think. If you have any other questions, drop a comment, send us a message. We're here to help you out. I know a lot of our users had questions about all these things. But now I hope that's cleared everything up for you guys. Cheers.